It's the 2025 Woodward Dream Cruise, and we're in the snake pit.
Oh, jeez.
I'm so sorry, that was really lame.
That's all right. Actually, I'm here for the bank architecture, since there are Cobras here, we'll talk about those. I can do a separate podcast on the architecture another time.
Exactly.
Right.
So, 2025 Woodward Avenue Dream Cruise. Excuse any noise. We've got potentially 40,000 classics driving up and down the road behind us. So if you hear rumbling or screeching tires, that's probably why. But this is Drawing Conclusions. I'm your idiot host, Craig Cole. This is Jason White, former car designer and a professor of design at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit. Allegedly. But what are we talking about here, Jason?
Well, the Cobra is a classic design, and that's not going to be news to anybody. But we're here along Woodward Avenue, close to a bank where the parking lot is doubling as a concours for these Cobras. We have a wide variety of kits here. I think it's safe to say that there aren't any original Cobras here.
I would say
these are all
not.
Probably kits. I mean, we have the Superformance kit over here, and then the name escapes me of this one.
The Factory 5, I believe.
Factory 5, thank you, over here. And these are perfect for illustrating one thing we'd like to point out about Cobras. There are certain designs that can bridge across eras, even though they're classics. Like, for example, you look at the Superformance. This is a design or an execution of the design that is very true to the original. You got lots of sidewall tire, you got the three-pronged wheel hubs, and just the general execution of this car is very, very close to what the original would be. Then you come over here and look at this one.
Quite a bit different.
Quite a bit different and much more modern. Obviously, it has a more modern engine. You've got these black rims and just general accoutrements that are much more that come after when the original Cobra was done. But you know what? It works for some reason. And I can't really put a finger on why that is the case, but this is a classic that you can personalize and update, and it still looks fantastic, and most purists are not going to come at you and go, hey, you.
Exactly.
You know, so.
No.
There are other cars where if you try that, it looks really bad and amateurish.
Yeah.
But this car almost seems to embrace it for some reason, and I can't really put a finger on why, but I'm glad it does. Because clearly it's
a very important classic as well in the pantheon of vehicles too.
Yeah, and it was because of the marriage of the AC Ace, which predated this car. That was the car that this one was based on.
Which is a British sports car.
Yeah, it started out with its own motor and then had a Bristol straight six, and you know, after a few modifications, it became ready for the massive power that it would be given as a Shelby Cobra.
Yeah.
And the thing also about this car, the forms of it, like I can look at these forms and I can picture the AC people with an English wheel making these beautiful
rolling
forms.
The fenders, yeah.
There is a lot of subtlety to the shape in this car that sometimes I think gets drowned out by the beefy proportions, because the proportions are really, really what takes center stage. And I've always said that 80% of car design is proportion anyway. The rest is detail. But the surface detail, look at the way that this shape here for the fender transitions into this, and look at the stripes that are reflecting off the ground into it. You can see the form and how this transition goes from here to here. This stuff is all handled really well. In the hands of other people, it might not be. In other cases, you'd have a cylinder running into this one,
and just a hard edge,
and there'd be no transition.
Yeah.
But and someone actually that we ran into earlier was pointing out that you can notice variations in these kind of treatments between two cars. Like, for example,
it's right over here. He was pointing
he was pointing to this transition, which is not easy to do correctly. You look at this transition from this barrel into the fender, and it's nice and soft and subtle, and it works really well. You look at this one over here, and it's a lot sharper, going from here to here. So
almost a crease there. But you would never notice that unless somebody pointed it out, or you had the two cars next to each other.
I think
you never see that.
I think if you looked at it long enough, I mean, that info comes from a guy who really knows the cars. And that's the other thing. People who drive the Cobras are very knowledgeable people. I would not presume to quiz them on Cobra history ever, because they would be right away, that's wrong. and they would be right to do so. But yeah, it's I really like how this car can exist in a variety of different eras, and it's not going to look like you're bastardizing the original Cobra.
Well, it's like you said, we've got the dark wheels here, a much more modern design compared to these, sort of a mag layout with a whole lot more sidewall. That's a dead giveaway that this is sort of an older version, right? But they both work on the vehicle.
Yeah.
And of course, powertrains, you said this started out with a straight 6, but...
That was back when it was in the day, just an AC vehicle and no Shelby involvement. Back then, it was just that was back when the AC Ace was original. That much I do know.
Sure. But then we've got Ford V8s. I think they offered a 289. You could get up to a 427, something like a 7-liter V8, which a 289 is a death wish, I would imagine, power-wise in a car this small and light. But a big block.
Yeah.
That's terrifying to think about driving. So much power.
One of my favorite movies of all time is The Killers from 1964, and it stars John Cassavetes as a race car driver, and he drives a black Cobra at Riverside, and it's such a good marriage of his ballsy attitude and just, he's a real type A, and it just goes so well with the car that he's racing.
Ernest Hemingway's The Killers. The wheels of fate challenge the killers who reach across today's great speedways to trap their victims as they roar across the screen in their Cobras, Ferraris, Maseratis at 160 miles per hour. John Cassavetes as Johnny North.
That's one of my favorites. Now that I've been out here looking at the Cobras, I'm going to have to watch that tonight.
You're going to have to check it out. But also, a lot of things we've seen under the hood here, they're doing modern engine swaps. So a 289 or a big block Ford, those are pushrod engines. But I've seen 3 or 4 of these cars that are running Ford's modular V8, the 5-liter Coyote, or in this case, the 5.2-liter version of that, which is a fantastic engine. It's so smooth, it's so powerful, it just rips to redline. A little bit different than a pushrod V8 would be, but again, fantastic in an application like this. The problem, though, of course, with these quad cam engines is they're very, very wide. You can see those cylinder heads, just how difficult it is to package a Coyote family engine into vehicles, which is why we see a lot of GM LS or technically LT engines swapped into vehicles, because the pushrod design is much more compact.
I may be getting a bit too much in the weeds here, but does a pushrod variant of the engine, does that have just one single camshaft over the top?
This is correct. One single camshaft in the middle, like
that's
between
what I thought.
the V.
Yeah.
And then you've got your lifters, and the pushrods come up, and that's what actuates the valves.
So the pushrods have got to be quite a distance, actually.
Yeah, they're usually about, 8-10 inches long.
Because you've got the single cam in the middle as opposed to the overhead cams.
Correct. So the 2 cams are right in the cylinder heads in this case, which are driven off a fairly complicated chain drive inside the engine, which you cannot see. But advantages and disadvantages, of course, to both designs. But there goes one of the Cobras now, rumbling off into the distance. What does that sound like? You think of 289 Coyote? I have no idea.
You would have better information on that than I would, for sure. Yeah.
Hey, sorry for the interruption, but really quick, we've got a new Automotive Esoterica merchandise store that you have got to check out. I'm currently wearing our World is Flat t-shirt. Get it? Flat heads, the world is flat. Anyway, check that out. We've got a whole bunch of other great things that you can purchase as well, from coffee mugs and magnets to bandanas and a whole lot more. So just scan the on-screen QR code or hit the link in the description box down below to check out the new AutoEsoterica merchandise store. And of course, the more items we can sell there, the more videos like this one we can bring you. So thank you so much, and back to the show.
But classic design, beautiful sports car, a whole bunch of them are out here today. It's a design that you said earlier manages to be both powerful and sophisticated, right?
Yeah, and that has a lot to do with the way the forms are handled. And as we showed you earlier, it depends on the kit. Some of them are maybe a bit more subtle with transitions than others are, but this is a very, very sophisticated design in terms of form transition, and I think really it's some of that plays second fiddle to the proportions, unfortunately, to the detriment of that stuff. But you put it all together, and it's a timeless design. These are going to look just as good now as they did originally. Also, it's funny that we're in a parking lot with all these stripes and blacktop, because it's a wonderful way. This is how you tell I'm really a designer at heart. Look over we get a really good idea of the form in the car
with those straight lines.
When you when you're working as a designer, you work with what's called zebra stripes.
Okay.
And those are put on, they form in a digital medium, and you can see every little transition in the car. Here's a great example of how from one kit to another, things are handled slightly differently. If you look here at the transition from the fender into the flare, it's a pretty tight fillet right there, transition. But then if you look at this one over here, it's far more subtle through here. Much more drawn out. If it were me, I prefer this execution better. And then the fillet that's in here cones down as it gets through to the front and the back. So I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong, but these are two different ways of executing the same surface area on the car. And when you have different people making different kits, that's
going to happen.
It's going to happen.
But it's a super subtle change. If you didn't point that out to me, a layperson, I would have never noticed that, ever.
I think color also plays into it. I think certain colors will show off transitions like that more than others. So, but
these are very similar. So that's a good example. In this dark blue. That you can actually see the difference.
And speaking of subtlety, I gotta point this out. This blue stripe, look at the beautiful execution of this metallic blue. Look at how it rolls from here to here. It's brighter here, it's darker here. That's the flake creating that. But it is so, so subtle and so well applied. I really like that. If I had to pick a favorite Cobra in here, this would be it, simply because of that stripe.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jason, for talking us through the Cobra design here. Always a pleasure working with you.
Yes.
And thank you guys so much for watching. Hey, really quick, Jason and I also dissected another very famous design, the Studebaker Avanti. Now, this is a car that gets one thing right that so many other vehicles get wrong. And to learn what that is, click the on-screen link right now.